How's it going, guys and geeks? Welcome back to the Geekritique show. I'm Dakota.
I'm Jen.
And we're going to be talking all about Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. We've seen it twice now. Obviously,
we love it.
We love it. It's a great time. But it's not perfect. It's not a perfect film, and we're going to be talking about the ups and downs of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. We saw it at an iPic theater. It was actually an interesting story because we bought tickets to see Guardians of the Galaxy at this iPic theater, which is unique because they have couple seats where they're kind of like lounge style seats with tables on them, which was pretty cool. But when we got there, we realized that it was literally the soft open for that particular theater, so it wasn't even officially open on the website. So I don't even know how we bought tickets, but
I'm still confused. It was a friend of mine who told us, yeah, buy them, they're available. You know, all this stuff, but it was nice.
Yeah, it was really cool. It was a really awesome experience, and even more awesome than that was the fact that after we came home from the theater, someone commented on our latest upload at the time saying that they saw us at that iPic theater. This is the very first time that anyone has ever recognized us from our YouTube channel and let us know.
Yeah, that was really, really cool for us. That was actually just insane.
Yeah,
so,
it was a bizarre moment for us.
We were getting ready to go to bed, and I just checked, my notifications, and I'm like,
apparently they were sitting right behind us, which is
I know exactly
cool.
where they were. They were the only people in that row, so that was really cool for us. If that happens again, I don't know if it ever will, don't be afraid to come up and say hi to us, just because that would have been the craziest thing for us.
Yeah, we don't take many selfies, but we might take one with you if you do recognize us. Just throwing that out there.
I don't know. I guess I would.
I would. Yeah.
You would. He's a lot more photogenic than I am, though. I think that's why he would.
Alright, guys, let's talk about Guardians of the Galaxy. Right off the bat, we have Dancing Groot. Groot scooting all over the screen while
was great.
Mr. Blue Sky is playing.
Which I also have been cleaning the house and playing that song and dancing around to it as well. It's a really great song to kind of tap your feet to.
And scoot, like Groot.
And scoot around.
Now, one thing that you notice immediately from this film is they saw what worked in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1, and they really bumped up that stuff in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Sometimes maybe too much, maybe sometimes not enough. And I think with Groot, it was just the right amount of this is what you want to see, and we're gonna give it to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think they totally utilized the fact that he is a baby to the fullest degree possible. He is a totally different character from what we saw in the first Guardians. So I think it's really cool, and then seeing him at the end as a teenager is just adorable.
Right. Well, his cognitive ability isn't as pronounced as what it was in I was about to say I Am Groot. Is in the first movie when he is able to have legitimate conversations with people like Rocket and understand what they are asking of him. But now he has no recollection of anything that they're actually saying, no idea what they're saying. And my question is so Groot is this phoenix-like being where if he dies, he can come back to life so long as there's a twig left of him or whatever. Does he have the same consciousness? Does he have the same memories?
Yeah, maybe as his brain develops, he will remember everyone again.
Or will he just have completely new relationships?
This is a new life completely.
Yeah. And it's been revealed to us that we haven't actually seen a fully grown Groot, not even in the first movie. So I expect by the time Avengers Infinity War rolls around, we'll probably have a closer idea as to what a fully grown Groot is, just based on the fact that we are seeing him grow super quickly. Because this film only takes place two months after the first one.
That's true, yeah. Which is really cool because it's just such interesting character depth, which is weird to say about someone who literally just says, I am Groot.
Yeah.
But it's I've never seen a character play out like that where you see a part of their life and then you see them. It's usually you go through flashbacks to find out what they're like, as an infant or as a child or a teenager. You know, you need flashbacks to do that. So I think it's really cool that we get to experience Groot, and it's linear, but it's not linear at the same time, you know?
No, I see what you're saying.
And I think that's really cool.
It's almost like the idea of, like, reincarnation a little bit. Like, you just restart.
Yeah.
In a show like Doctor Who, you just get a new body and a new personality, but you retain that consciousness, you retain all those memories. But
so maybe it's like that.
Yeah, maybe, but they reverse it to, like, baby form.
Maybe.
Which
but yeah,
cool.
That was fantastic. And, the scene where the whole, you know, Ravengers were all picking on him.
Oh,
and then when he walked all sad back, it just broke my heart. I just love him so much. After that whole scene, which was really cool and really epic, I loved the way that Drax thought he single-handedly defeated the monster. And it was everyone just saving him. And I feel like that's almost a metaphor for, like, how socially awkward he is. Like, he thinks he's, like, the great one, the center of attention, and it's usually everybody just covering for him and being like, ignore what he just said. No, you're not hideous. Like...
Oh, man. Drax really, actually, he shined a lot better than he did in the first movie. It's interesting that he did, because I don't think they expected Drax to be the hit that he was in the first movie. The jokes that he would say, like, nothing goes over my head, my reflexes are too fast, I would catch it. It's such a perfect joke. For someone like Drax who doesn't understand sarcasm, who doesn't understand anything like that. So, to get literally double that much Drax, I was very happy. Drax was probably my favorite character from the original, besides Groot. But one thing I wasn't super thrilled at was it seemed as though Rocket got the short end of the stick. While he did have an interesting character arc throughout the film, it was Rocket's storyline that felt shafted to me a little bit.
That's interesting that you say that, because it was something that we had discussed after we watched the film twice. After the first time watching the film, I was like, I feel like that was more emotional for Rocket. We didn't get as many of his jokes. And the second time, I was more paying attention to Rocket. And I saw, you know, how much of the story is about him in a lot of ways. Just because seeing the revelation of how Yondu's life turned out speaks volumes about him and his actions right now and what he's doing right now and what could become of him if he continues going down that road.
Right, because he's a very self-destructive character.
Yeah, and Yondu completely could empathize with that. But what I think is so cool about the way that they do Guardians of the Galaxy and the way that they kind of have all these characters going is, in the first film, Drax kind of went through a hard time, you know, and it was more about his family and more about his loss because he was trying to get redemption, he was trying to avenge them.
But I don't think that necessarily worked in the first movie. I don't feel like that hit home with enough people. And I think that's why they changed the tone with Drax a little bit.
Okay. You can say I thought that was an interesting concept because it's like he kind of just gave up and decided to be happy, which I feel like a lot of people need to do.
True.
But what I was going to say was what I think is cool about Guardians is that because it's a group of people, like the dynamics of this film are really unique. And the fact that it's like a series of films also, they can kind of play around with getting to know characters in different lights. And I think that's kind of more how it is with humans. Like you meet someone and they might be going through a bad time of their life, or you meet someone and they're going through a great time, but later on they might go through a hard time, and you're going to be with them all the same. So that's what I kind of like, where, you know, Peter even says to Rocket at one point, like, do you want everyone to hate you? Like, is that your goal? Rocket wasn't like that in the first film as much. He was more of like the jokester, the funny one, the one pushing the plot forward.
Right.
More. So I think it's cool because, like they said, they're family. Even if they're fighting all the time, even if one of them's going through a hard time, they don't leave anyone behind. They're always going to stick together. And I think the fact that you have all these different arcs emphasizes that all the more. You know, arcs in different ways. You know, this one was the comical relief in the first film, and now he's not. But that's life. Like, people go through stuff, and then they change a little. Or for a little while, they're different. You move on.
Yeah. Because the first film ended with the sacrifice of Groot, you kind of went into this wondering, well, what's the sacrifice going to be this time? Because you can kind of see the film playing off the same beats as the first one. And in some ways, it felt a little sophomoric in some respects. And one plot line that really didn't cut it for me was the fact that because they needed Yondu to be a sacrificial character, you needed to really get to know Yondu. So he became a very prominent character, and because he was a very prominent character, that left less room for characters such as Gamora or Rocket. And because Rocket's such a huge character and they needed that core member of the Guardians team to have that personal arc, they needed to get Rocket and Yondu to understand that they were very similar. And that cut the team in half. There was literally zero reason for the Guardians team to split up when Ego found Peter. You can go watch it again. There's no explanation. Nebula would have been far more guarded on Ego's planet than she would have in a forest with a bunch of broken equipment and a broken ship and a baby Groot and a really angry raccoon. It didn't really make much sense, and why would they leave Groot on this planet with no actual defense besides Rocket and all his tricks? So it was clearly a means for them to get Rocket and Yondu to have that moment in the prison cell, and I kind of felt manipulated a little bit.
That's a really strong word.
No, I was emotionally manipulated. That's exactly what that is, because you are strung along emotionally, and it didn't make any sense, literally.
So yeah, now you know Dakota is a victim of Guardians of the Galaxy. He's been horribly manipulated.
Not horribly, but it was a little bit annoying.
I think we should start a donation fund. Maybe get some like Save Dakota t-shirts. Try to, raise awareness to the cause of emotional manipulation in theater.
By the way, guys, side note, we just realized our microphone wasn't recording. It is now, so we sound probably a lot better.
And we're sorry about that.
We're so sorry.
Sometimes we're like Groot and we push the wrong button.
Or don't press it at all.
But, we're all baby Groots in this world. Just trying to find our way. Yeah. Trying to grow up.
I touched on it briefly, but what about Gamora? How did you feel that, did she work for you? Did she not work for you?
Gamora always works for me. I think she's great. I really liked her. I relate to her character a lot.
Okay. Explain how.
Because... Okay, so I'm not in this position now, but I have been in that position where you are the only one on the team who has their crap together, and you're just and I know I'm like super ditzy sometimes and quirky, so it's weird to think of me in that position, but it has happened, believe it or not. And when you're the only one trying, it's so frustrating. So just seeing her snap and seeing her being seriously, our ship is ruined, and I've been there. I still get sassy, I still get oh my gosh, I can't take the stupidity sometimes. Mm-hmm. Not directing that at Dakota. This isn't, I'm not even talking about him. I'm just saying in general.
Alright, so
I've been in that situation. I can relate to that. And then too, I can relate to being afraid to just dive into a relationship, to change the dynamics of what you have. Just being afraid of everything. Because when Mantis touches her, she says, "You were scared." And you kind of see, she gets, a panic attack almost. She, freaks out. She's like, "What did she do to me?" And you can tell, even though her sister's handling the traumatic experiences that they've been through as kids in a different way, you hear Gamora go, "Psychopath." She's not all there either. She's kind of, coping in her own way where she's just trying to, get by and move on and function, but she still lives with fear. And because that wasn't just fear with that situation of them being on Ego's planet, that was fear with her and Peter's relationship with their ship and why it was broken, and
maybe
her future. Yeah. Nebula says, I want to kill Thanos, and she goes, "I don't think that's gonna happen." I don't think she really knows what she's doing, but she's just trying to hold everyone together. She's the matriarch of the family. I think a lot of women could relate to that in many ways.
Sure.
So that's cool.
Okay. What about Nebula? Do you feel like she worked?
Nebula, I don't think it's the acting. I think they give her some dumb lines.
It wasn't ripe.
Yeah, that, it was cringy when she said that.
Okay.
That whole joke didn't stick with me.
There were a few that don't stick in the movie, unfortunately.
But Nebula, I think the problem is her voice. And I don't know, hear me out, that sounds ridiculous. A whole character doesn't work because of her voice. her voice, just something about it, it's too raspy and like hard. And I get it that her body as a whole has been horribly like disfigured and manipulated, so that's why she sounds like that. Don't get me wrong, but I'm just saying, like, sometimes the jokes that she says I don't think land because it's difficult to like create tone almost. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I don't know, something about her voice when she spoke kind of like grinded my gears. Pun intended.
Now, I don't feel that it's the voice necessarily, because sometimes when it's a close-up of her face and when she's like being menacing to other people, it works. And the emotional stuff for me did work. Like,
yeah, that was
like, I just wanted a sister scene. That was great. I loved that scene. But my suspension of disbelief was ruined the moment that she was on the Ravager ship. When she's on the Ravager ship, they do show a full body shot, and I think that's in an attempt to make the character of Nebula a very seductive character and very powerful character. But by the way that they had the camera pointed, the type of clothes that they chose for Nebula, and the way that they made Karen Gillan try to walk, it looked more awkward than anything, and it didn't look like she had command of the situation at all. It looked like the opposite, and it looked like she was just counting her steps, really.
Yeah, it seemed like, I feel like in my head they just redid that take over and over and were like, walk sexier, more powerful, and like you can't just like dress a character like that. Like, Karen is really beautiful. So, but the way that they, like, her clothes were, like, really baggy and stuff like that, like, but that's fine. It's not like we need her to be that way. Yeah, but I felt like they were trying to force the character to be something that she wasn't necessarily.
Right.
Not at least, like, Karen's version of her, you know what I'm saying? Because even, like, they had her standing, like, her, like, arm was, like, bent, like, really awkward. It just looked uncomfortable, that scene. So yeah, I see.
Or whenever they like had her like pose like before or after like a fight, it was just awkward. It didn't look like she was in a fighting stance. It looked like she was just posing for a picture, and it just didn't work for me. The menace of Nebula just did not work for me, but the emotional scenes did.
And we had talked about that prior to filming this, actually, on the car ride home the other day. And for me, it didn't not work because I feel like she's always just trying to catch up with Gamora, and she's kind of a tryhard. Like, that's her job. Like, that's not her job, but like, that's just who she is. She's a tryhard, and because she's trying so hard, she kind of fails.
Right.
You know, even in that whole fight scene where, like, she had the higher ground. She had every advantage that she possibly could have, but she was so angry that she couldn't hit her target. She couldn't win.
Right.
And not that I obviously didn't want her to kill Gamora. I'm not saying that I did. I'm just saying, like...
And it's clear she doesn't want it either.
Yeah, exactly.
She just wants to win.
Yeah, she just for this one time, you know, not at the life of her sister. And when she said that, too, when she said, like, you watched Thanos do this to me and you had to win every time to Gamora, you know, in the first film, you really don't empathize with Nebula at all. But in that scene, I'm like... Yeah, Gamora, what the heck? You couldn't just throw one match? Like, you couldn't just throw a match? Like, let your sister keep her eye or something? You know?
Yeah. Well.
Like, let her have her arm? I don't know, her shoulder? That is pretty jacked up. But that's, like, the epitome of sibling rivalry. You guys are so pitted against each other and so angry, and you don't even remember why, but you need to, like, put them... You know what I mean? Like, you need to win. And... I think in a sense this film is so much about family, you know, and so we can go on and on about like that to me is like the main theme going through this. It's about family and like all of the different levels of dysfunctionality and how to overcome them.
So while we're on the topic of family, let's get to the crux of it with Ego, the living planet, being Peter Quill's father. That was, I mean, it wasn't a huge revelation. That was in the trailers, but...
But the fact that he was dumb evil was...
Yes. I mean, you kind of have to...
With a name like Ego.
You kind of have to assume that someone named Ego is going to be the villain at some point.
I really hadn't... That's dumb of me, but I really hadn't considered it.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, it's that guy from Overboard playing Peter's dad.
Kurt Russell, Jen. It's not just the guy from Overboard.
I've only seen Overboard with him in it. I haven't seen any of his other films.
We got to do a reaction series to Kurt Russell films. With
Actually,
this one.
yeah, we wanted to do that because it's quite sad because I loved him in Overboard. I think he's great. You know, Goldie Hawn's husband, he's a great guy. But yeah, I hadn't seen any. So I wanted to know if you guys could like comment your favorite Kurt Russell films and I'll watch them. And maybe like we'll pick like 3 and do like a movie day on like a rainy day and do a reaction to all of them. So I can get, you know, who he fully is.
I want to do Big Trouble in Little China. Let's get back to the...
Tombstone is one I've always wanted to see.
Oh. Let's get back to the review.
So after the part that Dakota didn't like, where they split up for no apparent logical reason, you see Peter, Gamora, and Drax go with Ego to his planet after he, like, effortlessly destroys all of those ships. So they're going, his planet's absolutely beautiful. You have My Sweet Lord by George Harrison playing. Then he reveals that he is a celestial. Basically like a, what would that be, like a demigod? Or is it just a god?
Lowercase g god.
Lowercase g god. You know, obviously that's pretty crazy. I did like how, just rewinding a little bit, I liked how Gamora like talked Peter into going to see him and like spend time with him. I feel like that's what any good girlfriend would do, even if you're a little like, this guy seems like a douche.
Yeah.
You know, you're like, it's his dad. Like, just, we'll spend one night with the weird guy so you could get to know your dad. That's fine. I loved the scene where, you know, Peter realizes, like, he is in touch with the light. Is that how they phrased it?
Yeah, the light of the planet or whatever.
Yeah, like, he carries the genes of the light, and he's able to create, you know, and then he makes a little ball.
That stupid scene. It's so great.
And both times that we saw it, the audience is like gradual laughter. Like some people get it like right away, and some people, as it just the scene gets cheesier and cheesier, are like, that is like the best to me. Like the way that the progression of laughter, people like, oh my gosh, seriously?
This isn't happening.
This is not real.
But it is happening.
Which is so great. And I love that Guardians can do that because it's like a superhero film, but they have every reason to be able to like almost take you out of the movie, you know, with silly references or, you know, stuff like that, like Pac-Man and Heather Locklear, and, you know, you get these dumb references that kind of do pull you back into reality, but like you're still there, like you still love it, you feel like you're a part of it still, which I think is really cool. Because a lot of times any like super obvious references to real life kind of tick me off in like fantasy or superhero or anything like that films, because I feel like it almost takes you out of what's going on.
You made a really interesting point to me the other day, after we saw the movie for the second time, that Ego draws parallels to the God of the Bible.
Not just the God of the Bible, just the figure of a higher power in general.
Yeah.
To me, the fact that they played that George Harrison song as they were going in, that song is all about like I want to get to know God, but I don't know what he's called. So they say hallelujah, which is praise God, or Hare Krishna, which is, you know, like another name for God, and they go through at the end all of these different names, and it's basically George Harrison saying like, I want to know who God is or who the creator is, but I don't know how to go about that, and I don't know who this guy is. So it's interesting because you see like all of the creation, the beautiful things that he's made, and then to find out that he lets death happen to all of his other children. He planted a tumor in Peter's mom's head. You know, it's basically this film to me, which I thought was really well done, because I'm sure a lot of people caught it, because to me, especially putting that song at the beginning, it was pretty obvious, but it's basically asking the question, if God is real, why are humans allowed to suffer? And I just thought that they did it in a really interesting way. And I felt like there were a lot of different, you know, parallels to that, you know, because it's not in your face, super obvious. So yeah, that's just something that I noticed in this whole story. I feel like they're pretty ticked with God because they run their ship through him at the end. Because Peter goes, of course I'm messed up. That's my dad. And it's kind of...
that was the best scene.
And that's what I love about this film, because it's so cool, because it's saying like, everybody's jacked up. Gamora's jacked up. Nebula's jacked up. Rocket's messed up. you know, Groot's just doing his freaking thing, and Drax has let it all go and just being mean to random people by accident.
Poor Mantis.
And it's like, they're all, like, really, like, messed up individuals, and it's kind of just saying, well, the world is messed up. Life is messed up. Like, we're not all, you know, perfect. Even if Yondu was a crappy dad, it's because his father was a bad dad before him. Just like if Rocket's a bad guy, it's because his life sucked. So when you meet bad people, maybe, you know, or bad people, because there's no such thing as, like, bad and good in my eyes, people. But, you know, when you meet people, give them the benefit of the doubt. Their life might have just sucked, and that's why they do the things that they do. Because we're kind of all a byproduct of the crappy environment that we're in called Earth.
Fair enough.
Dakota actually brought up a really good point as well. So we know that this film is about, like, family dynamics. You know, you have sibling rivalry with, you know, Nebula and Gamora. You have a child who was like neglected and abused by his parents in Rocket. The next step, you know, in family dynamics is, and even too with Gamora taking care of everyone, like almost like the maternal figure. So we know Peter's real father was a piece of crap, but then you find out, like, his real dad, Yondu, even though he was imperfect, was just doing his best to help him out.
I'm Mary Poppins, y'all.
And I love that Cat Stevens song. Just saying. Okay, that's a side note. Yeah. I love that song. But Dakota brought up another interesting family dynamic that was discussed in the film that I hadn't thought about at all.
Well, yeah, at the end of the film, you notice that it's almost like the Guardians of the Galaxy are now the father or mother, in Gamora's case, of Baby Groot. That scene where he's listening to Father and Son, I think it's Father and Son by Cat Stevens. He actually puts Groot on his lap and he's giving him the earbud of the Zune. And yeah, it was just great because Peter has now become the father figure in this cycle. And it was cool because in the end credits we actually see Peter being the father to a teenage Groot. I am Groot. And that was so great. Let's talk a little bit about the music because you've brought it up a few times. There's George Harrison, My Sweet Lord, Mr. Blue Sky,
ELO,
yeah, Cat Stevens, Father and Son. My favorite was Fleetwood Mac's The Chain. I've had that song stuck in my head for days now.
It's literally been his anthem. It's nonstop with The Chain. Every time we get in the car.
You will never break the chain. Anyway.
He gets really into it.
I think even more so than the first film, this movie uses music as a storytelling agent.
It's definitely more, like, entrenched in the plot as well.
Yeah, besides the fact that, like, Ego breaks down the song Brandy for him, everything about what is going on inside the songs is a parallel to what's going on inside their lives. And I think that's really, really cool.
Except for Lakeshore Drive. I don't know how that one ties in.
Lakeshore Drive, yeah, I think it's a song about LSD. What's great about these soundtracks, even with the first movie, is that they are literally Peter's ties to Earth. They are anchoring him down to a normality that he hasn't seen since he was, 8 or 9? I love that about him. I love the fact that he places such a high regard on Earth composers. Because why would you? You're in space. But he does, because that is
But everyone in space loves it, too.
Which is so fantastic, because even in the beginning of this movie, we have Rocket trying to play the music while they battle, because it'll be good to jam to. Then Rocket again is asking Cracklin if they have any of Peter's old music on the Ravager ship while they go and destroy the house. Everyone seems to love Peter's taste in music, and it's perfect.
Yes. He's definitely the one holding that aux cord in the car, in the road trips.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Not that there's much aux cords anymore. Now it's all Bluetooth, but
everything.
Yeah.
But
actually, speaking of what's his name, Cracklin?
Mm-hmm.
Dakota is Cracklin. I'm just gonna say that outright. And you can take whatever you want from that, but when I was watching that movie, I was like, something about him reminds me of Dakota. Not in the sense, like, Dakota would totally stand up and say, you know, to the leader, like, well, that's not fair. You treat them differently than you treat or you treat him differently than you treat the rest of us. But it wouldn't be in that way, and I'm not saying with like the more intense scenes, but just like the simple stuff, like when Nebula like vents out on him and he's just like, oh, that's not what I expected. I could
or
see
when
him
he's eating soup and he's just like, soup.
he
Perfect.
does dumb stuff like that all the time. So every time I see that guy, I start cracking up because of all the silly stuff Dakota's doing around the house, or like the reactions he gives to people when they're like being weird or crazy. He's just like, all right.
One thing that we need to touch on, Stan Lee's cameo. Well, it's been a long rumored thing that Stan Lee is actually Uatu the Watcher, which is the Watcher of Earth. But it looks like he's just an informant for the Watchers. So literally every single one of his appearances on screen is likely the same individual person, and he's just watching the world for these Watchers. He's an informant for the Watchers. And they get sick of his stupid stories.
This time I was a mailman. Wait!
This time I was a Federal Express agent.
I love him. I love that man.
Yeah.
He is so great.
He is a legend. He's a
what a life he's
national
led.
treasure.
He is a national treasure. He's great. One thing that I would love to see, well, which I know I will see, but I'm like really excited for, just kind of going along with what Dakota was saying before about like what a high, regard Peter Quill has for his planet, Earth. Their music is the best. He has like all of these like references. It's still so clear in his mind, Earth. You'd think after all that he's been through and most of his time was spent in space, like he wouldn't have such like a fondness for it that he does. But when he gets back to Earth, it's going to be drastically different. Like completely different. The music is going to be totally different.
I think
the way people dress.
The Zune will like help him
like open his eyes. Yeah, I'll be like, what is this? I'm just so curious to know, because at the same time he's a lot of fun, so I could see him like being like, I actually really like this, or I could picture him being like, this is absolute garbage. What happened to my planet? What happened to my home? This isn't the Earth I remember.
Tony Stark is going to teach Peter Quill the wonders that are AC/DC and Black Sabbath.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
I cannot picture a scene where Tony Stark doesn't talk about music to him.
Yeah.
Also, it'll be so great seeing the Guardians of the Galaxy in Avengers Infinity War, because I'm most excited specifically for Rocket, because everyone's going to be calling him a raccoon, because everyone's from Earth. Everyone knows what a raccoon is, and he's like, I'm not a raccoon, stop calling me that. And it'll
I wanted to see a raccoon in the wild.
Oh.
Just see one like
He
going
will.
through the trash.
He will.
He's gonna see one, and then he's gonna think of Trash Panda.
Oh man.
It's worse. It's much worse.
Oh, I can't wait for that. Oh my gosh.
It's gonna be so great.
2018 can't come soon enough.
No, it can't.
So this was the 15th film. Was it the 15th film?
I don't know. We counted today and we forgot already.
Alright, so it was, let's see, Iron Man, Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2, Thor, Captain America the First Avenger, Avengers, Iron Man 3, Thor the Dark World, Guardians of the Galaxy, Winter Soldier, Avengers Age of Ultron, Ant-Man, Captain America Civil War, Doctor Strange, and Guardians of the Galaxy 2, yeah. So, yeah, 15 films in a row. Marvel has done it.
It's incredible.
It wasn't a perfect movie by any means.
But we loved it.
I think the first one was much better, but I love this. I'm so happy that this is a thing, because it's a snippet of a universe that we likely will never see again once this is all done and over with. So I'm so happy that we have it, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, we loved it. So let us know what you guys think. We always appreciate your feedback. Just comment, please. We love it.
Those are the best things that you can do for us.
Yeah, we love like waking up in the morning, having coffee, and reading all the ridiculous like stuff that we get to talk about, or the cool stuff, or interesting stuff, or we love that we get to be a part of
a community,
a community of people of from all over
the world,
doing all different things into different things, loving it, hating it, doing it, live it.
Where's this going? Thank you guys. It's really late for us.
We're really tired.
Have a great night. Thank you guys.
Bye.